Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Tahmina Watson, your host of Tahmina Talks Immigration. Welcome. This summer, I decided to record a series called Legal Heroes in the Trump Era. I wanted to speak with some of the lawyers who have stepped up beyond their day jobs to make a difference in immigration, civil rights, and much more. I wanted their insights from their work in the last 4 years so we can learn lessons to take into the future, especially as one of the most consequential elections in America lies ahead. The interview series became a book called Legal Heroes in the Trump Era. Be inspired, expand your impact, change the world. The book can be found on Amazon and other outlets. I hope you will pick it up. Enjoy these interviews. I hope you'll learn a lot. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being here. Welcome, everyone. This is Tahmina Watson on Tahmina Talks Immigration. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I have a wonderful guest, a person that's very close to my heart, and I cannot wait to introduce you to him. His name is Takao Yamada. He is an attorney. He's a co-founder of Airport Lawyer and co-founder of WIDEN. Takao, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's such a treat to actually speak to you like this because we often just are on the call saying, oh my gosh, I haven't fixed this and can you fix that? So this is just a very nice treat and I'm so grateful you're taking some time out.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, I know you and how awesome you are, and I want to make sure our listeners and viewers know that too. But before we dive into the issues I want them to know about, let's get them to know about you a little. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Los Angeles, California, in uh, but I grew up actually in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the University of Michigan is, and I lived there until I graduated high school. So I'm a good Midwestern boy, I suppose.
And so how did your path lead to Seattle?
Well, I bounced around the East Coast for a long time after college, mostly Philadelphia and Washington D.C. And then I went to law school in D.C. at Georgetown. And actually, my parents and the parents of my then girlfriend, now wife, lived in Seattle. So after graduation, we kind of decided to decamp to Seattle, where our families were, and I loved it here. So I was always going to stay.
Well, good choice, and I'm so glad you did. So did you always want to be a lawyer?
Well, I fall into that category of kids who were opinionated, argumentative, and kind of into politics. And those kids are always told they're supposed to be lawyers, and it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think I wanted to be a lawyer because everyone sort of said that I should be a lawyer. And I love the law, but I think in that way I always wanted to be a lawyer. But uh, I don't know that there was anything innate other than I liked arguing with people, and those people end up becoming lawyers more often than not.
That's true. That's true. Well, you know, I'm so glad you did become a lawyer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met you.
This
And
is
then,
true.
yeah, tell us a little bit about your legal career up until now.
Well, my legal career is pretty scant. I'm not as, I'm not a practicing attorney. I clerked at the trial court level for then judge, now Washington State Supreme Court Justice Mary Yu. And then after clerking, I kind of got out and I looked around at some of the opportunities available to me, and nothing looked that appealing. And I was sort of spinning my wheels and doing some political consulting work and helping out with odd jobs, which is something that I always loved doing. And then a friend of mine approached me about helping him do a startup, tech startup. And I don't have a tech background, but I owned businesses before, and he thought we'd make a good team. So I did that for a few years and sold that startup. And then since then, I've largely fallen back to the world of consulting, and I help. Largely, my work consists of helping really new startups get off the ground and coach them through that process and coach them through getting a product to market, and sort of that, a lot of that early stage stuff. And that's mostly what I do these days. And then, of course, my work with Wyden and a few other things where I can help out in more of a social justice capacity.
Well, you really have done a lot in the last 3.5 years, and I've witnessed that. And in fact, that's how we met. You just tell us a little bit about the election of November 2016. You know, we all sort of remember that moment when the election results were declared. What do
Yeah,
you
it was pretty
remember?
memorable. Well, I mean, for me personally, it was very unpleasant because I was doing election protection in Phoenix, Arizona, which I will admit is not my favorite place. And so I was by myself watching election results roll in and sort of watching this catastrophe
Oh
happen,
my gosh.
sitting in a hotel room in Phoenix. So it was not a fun night. Um, but after that, picking myself up off the carpet, literally, uh, you know, I think I joined a lot of people and felt a very strong call to service. I think for the most part, people felt like things were going okay, without getting into a larger discussion of whether they actually were okay. Most people felt like things were, we were making progress. There were bad things and good things, but we were sort of chugging along. And I think the election of Donald Trump was a really catastrophic change in that impression. So, after the election of 2016, I think I joined a lot of people who felt like, well, when things are going okay, it's sort of okay to be a little bit selfish. I mean, it's not great to be selfish, but you can think about, well, what am I doing for me? What am I doing for my family and stuff like that. But I think, like a lot of people, I felt a much more intense call to service after the election of Donald Trump that said, things were a lot worse than I thought they were. Things are about to get even worse under this president, and I need to be doing whatever's in my capacity to help. Um,
And
that
so,
was,
with that thought, did you actually take any steps or actions between November and January?
uh, you know, I don't know that I did a lot of concrete stuff. I did a lot of evangelizing, and I sort of helped. Um, I reached out to a lot of groups, and on a person-to-person basis, I tried to help people. And I adopted this idea of, you fight every day. And so I made a commitment to every day I would do something, even if that one day it was, give $5 to the ACLU, give $5 to Planned Parenthood, doing one small thing every single day as a commitment to making change that fundamental core part of my everyday life is something that I thought about every day, and not just when an issue popped up. So mostly it was doing small stuff like that, and I think waiting for something more concrete to find its way to me. I think, like most people, I had a pretty strong sense that something more concrete and catastrophic would happen very quickly after the president was elected.
And there it happened almost immediately.
Sure
So
did.
tell us about that day. And I'm talking about the day the travel ban was signed, 5 p.m. Friday, January 27th, I believe, 2017. Tell us what was going through your mind. How did you get the news and what did you do next? I think people just don't know what you did, and it'll be good to know and have that picture.
Well, at that time, I was expecting the birth of we were expecting the birth of our first child. Um, so I didn't spend too much time down at the first round of protests. I went, and it was sort of like this, I went to the airport and joined the protest. Um, but then I kind of left because it was like, well, our kid's going to be born in the next week or so, so I can't be gone for too long. Uh, but after that, I kept going back. Like, I felt the need to go back, and I reached out to some friends of mine who were also working on this, and we went back on Saturday, and then I think it was on Sunday, which was when it had kind of slowed down, and I went back again on Sunday because I had noticed there was this small group of people who were right by international arrivals.
And this is at the SeaTac airport for
This is
people
at
who don't know.
SeaTac. This is at SeaTac Airport. Uh, who were there trying to help anyone who might be in trouble. And I think what people may not have known and may not remember about the problems of the travel ban is at airports, there's really no good means of communication for someone who's traveling into this country who might be detained. Um, you're flying internationally, maybe your phone doesn't work, maybe you don't have a phone that's meant to work in this country. You can't get Wi-Fi. So if you get detained, they'll take your phone when you're detained, and all of a sudden you have people waiting out there, discovering, waiting for hours and hours before realizing that the person they're waiting for has been detained. And so there was a small group of people. There were some lawyers and some just non-lawyer protesters who were waiting around trying to talk to people. And I just thought, well, this makes a lot of sense, and this is actually really important, both as a statement of we're here to help, but also practically just being able to help all the people being caught up in the travel ban. And so I ended up going back every day for a long time. It was something that immediately was like, I can do this. I can do my work from here. I can help. And I ended up just being present there and working with other lawyers and other people who were present, and other people who wanted to help, and building a larger coalition, a legal community in Seattle to do that work and to always be present to help people while the travel ban was going on. And that eventually led to Airport Lawyer being built, which is, combining my tech background, the tech background of other attorneys, and I met Tahmina, and really trying to solve the problem of, well, how do people get in touch with us? And we built Airport Lawyer very quickly, which is, it's a web app designed for people who are traveling to alert attorneys who might help in advance of their travel, or if they have the capacity through Wi-Fi on the plane, on the ground, to fill out a quick form that would then alert someone on the outside saying, I'm worried I'm going to be detained, and giving contact information so that we could expect it. Because once we could expect someone, then it gave us the chance to keep track of them and help out in that way.
And so backtracking just a little bit. So you were volunteering for IRC at the time when you were at the airport?
I was. That was how I first started. I wasn't even volunteering. A friend of mine was volunteering, and I tagged along with her when I first went to the airport.
And then I remember Greg McLawson coming back and saying, hey, you've got to talk to Takao. And that's how I think we got initially introduced. And just to put things in sort of a broader perspective, I was sitting at my desk and my phone and my email had blown up. Like, I've got a passenger stuck here. I've got, so many people were contacting me because I had told them between November and January, I'm here. And so suddenly people were, and I didn't know how to do intake. And so I was just figuring out how to use Google Forms. And I remember sending that to you and Greg and saying, well, we need to have a way to actually get that information that we need. And I'm so grateful that all of the pieces that were necessary at that time came together, because we each had a different competence level. And it was a really great team. And I think it was Neota Logic.
It was.
That came and helped as well. And so it was really a meeting of the minds with the right people. And what people need to know is it took 1 week only to build that app. So Friday, 27th, the ban happens. By the following weekend, that Sunday, the website was up, which is record time for something that is so complex, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think the key was that we actually didn't make it complicated. And I think that was where having a diverse background of people participating in the process really helped, because it's very easy when you do tech development to say, oh, we should have this feature, we should have that feature, we should have this feature, and you get this sort of feature creep where you start building a really complicated piece of technology. And I think one of the things that we were able to figure out by talking it through and really thinking about the problems was that we don't need a complicated thing. We need a really simple thing. We need a really good landing page that makes a lot of sense, that's in a lot of different languages, that directs people to fill out a form with basic information, that's not going to have to be super secure, and then it can just be forwarded to the attorneys. And then, obviously that caught fire, and we ended up in lots of different airports. I think, somewhere around 30 airports in the United States and abroad were using the app. And it was because it was simple. It doesn't have to be a complicated process if you focus down on what it is, the simple thing you need done. In our case, we just needed a way for someone to raise their hand and say, I might need help.
Yeah, and what an amazing thing that was for that moment in time. And what was also interesting is while that app was being built, lawyers around the country were going to airports trying to help, but there was no way to really match the passengers with the lawyers. So tell us how you got those airports in place, because it was a record number of lawyers and airports, I mean, in a short amount of time. And I think within a week you had 30 airports listed.
Well, I don't know that it was a week, but it was really pretty straightforward because again, we built a really simple tool for raising your hand and providing basic information, and because it was a lot of lawyers and there was a real community effort, we were able to reach out through L4GG and some other organizations that we're trying to sort of provide some architecture for all the different efforts at all the different airports. And we were able to get, a lot of people to use this app simply because we showed it to them and they said, well, that solves our problem. Can you give that to us?
Fantastic. And what it really did was matched distressed passengers with lawyers on the ground, no matter which airport they were at, correct?
Correct.
And then how you're still managing that app, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't come up that often anymore, largely because there's a lot less focus on travel. I would say it's down to about once a month. I'll get an email from someone who's traveling and who's either in trouble or they're worried they're going to be in trouble. And then usually I can reach out to the people at the airport. I can reach out to you and other immigration attorneys I know to provide some help and some counsel for people who are still in trouble. But that's still ongoing. That still crops up because people, I think immigration has only become scarier and more intimidating as time has gone on.
Yeah. And they were emboldened by that travel ban. So it's another week, another travel ban. And only just this week, we had the work visa travel ban. That's going to really be a nail in the coffin for the economy during a pandemic. And so watch out. You may actually get, more inquiries, actually. But so that took a little while for it to calm down some. But in that time where you had envisioned lawyers needing some sort of architectural assistance in matchmaking where necessary, what was going through your mind next? Because, soon thereafter, we saw separation of parents, and you and I had met and talked about what's coming next and what do we do. Tell the people from your perspective, what happened next and how you sort of stepped in to make WIDEN what it is today.
Well, you and I had spoken a couple of times, including we had lunch one time, and I don't think I communicated to you that we'd been trying to have this lunch and discuss next steps. What are we going to do next? There's obviously energy to help. What are we going to do next? And we had this great lunch that I don't think I told you I was running about a 103 fever for the duration of that lunch.
Oh,
I just had to suffer through because it had been so tough to calendar.
I'm so
and I was
sorry.
very fortunate that I was cogent because I probably couldn't have, when I left lunch, I probably couldn't have told you a word I said. But, one of the things that we had seen a lot of at the airports is there was huge interest in the legal community in helping. But particularly on the immigration front, that's a very specialized field of law. So your average attorney, even not just people who aren't practicing like me, but let's say your average contracts attorney still has specialized legal knowledge. They still have the ability to understand how the legal system works, how legal process works, but they don't have any of the specialized knowledge related to law. So we had all these lawyers who wanted to help, and we had to give them tasks that didn't take advantage of their knowledge. And that was really frustrating, I think, for everyone involved. And I certainly appreciated that on my end. And we'd had conversations about how to make this more sustainable. And you approached me with the idea that you'd been working on about a separate problem, which was that immigration lawyers, which is a field which has lots of small and solo practitioners, were really kind of tapped out. They'd really sort of hit the end of their pro bono rope. There's only so many hours you can devote to these cases, and everyone would love to devote more, but you just run up into the absolute cap, the absolute feed your family cap, where you're devoting too many hours to pro bono projects. And you had this really terrific idea about, well, let's think about how to help those lawyers. Let's think about how we can get them take more cases, and get them a little bit of money. And I think we were able to combine those ideas into something that really became sustainable, going forward, not just in terms of, well, we can get people more cases, but also we can get those non-immigration lawyers the help they need. And that's the WIDEN model, which is really a system of mentorship, which allows immigration attorneys to get a stipend to take particular immigration cases, but also they get a team of non-immigration attorneys that they essentially mentor through this immigration case. So those attorneys get a real apprenticeship in immigration law, which is going to be the fastest way for them to become helpful, so that we're training non-immigration lawyers to have enough competency that they can help the next time there is something as serious and as widespread as a travel ban, so that their capacity to help in an immigration crisis goes up, but also immigration lawyers' ability to provide their specialized knowledge in more cases also goes up. So we increase the capacity for specialists and we create more specialists at the same time. And that really met both of our goals.
Yeah, and I cannot thank you enough, because what you have uniquely is the lawyer skills, the legal training, which gives you the understanding of what the problems are legally, but also the startup tech aspect, which I have zero knowledge of that. And, the matchmaking of these competencies with also our other co-founders, Minda Thorward and Jay Garrison and Erin Albanese, it was just a really magical team that came together. So very, very thankful. Very thankful.
It was very fun. As you know, I take a paper notebook with me to every meeting, and I have just stacks and stacks of these paper notebooks from every meeting I think I've ever taken. The other day I was going through some of them to try and cull the clutter, and I actually found the one that I had at that meeting, which was very fun because it actually had the first time I drew the actual pods that I was envisioning. And I was like, well, so you take these three things and you put them here and you draw them here. And it was really fun to see. It was also it was a legacy of always having a whiteboard with me too often that I drew exactly. It was terrible, but it was fun to see those pods.
Yeah, and you actually did use the word pod at that time.
That was
It's interesting, because I think what we have done is created a new model that I think can be replicated not just in immigration and in other things. And who knows where the future lies. And talking about the future a little bit, WIDEN has been training non-immigration lawyers in immigration law and building capacity. But, the current administration hasn't stopped at immigration, and it's, dismantling the
always
rule of
something.
law and, democracy as a whole. Why do you think lawyers are important in today's age compared to any other?
Well, I think lawyers are so important because the core corruption of the Trump era, which is not to say it's the primary evil or address the racism, but the core corruption is there's just no belief in the rule of law. It's deep and old and classical corruption, which says the powerful should have no laws save power. And I'm a deep believer in the law and in process and in lawyers, because at the end of the day, the law and legal systems are the only reliable way for the people to bind the powerful, to make them follow the rules. And that's when law is at its best, is when it's giving the powerless structure that says the powerful have to follow the same rules as everyone else. And so thinking about it going forward, lawyers are the only people, or the people, not the only people, but certainly the people best positioned to help rebuild that law, to help rebuild the rule of law, to try and push back on lawlessness, which is really what the Trump administration is. It's fundamentally a rejection of law by the powerful. And I think lawyers are the people who, in an ideal world, can push back on that and bring structure, bring rules back into it.
And so question for you, because you have created pathways for non-immigration lawyers, as well as immigration lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
to come to community service, would you have any opinion on legal activism? Would you call this activism? What would you say lawyers have been doing? It's sort of not necessarily staying at their desk anymore. There's an urge to do more. And
I mean,
I've been calling activism.
I think it's perfectly okay to call it all activism. I think that that should have a broad definition, because people who are, the lawyer sitting at their desk who is drafting documents to help protesters is an activist. Um, in the same way that the person in the street is an activist. It's all part of the structure of fighting to make a better, more just society. And if you're doing that professionally or using your professional skills outside of work, that's all activism. And I think some of that is activism is a good thing. As I said, I think it's about trying to craft that better, more just world for all of us.
As you're talking, I'm like, where am I going to quote him? You have so many profound things that are coming out of your mouth that I've just sort of feel like as though I got to write it all down. It's profound that lawyers are protesting just as much as the protester on the street by representing those folks. And, what is going to be interesting, and you and I have seen the rise of the legal activism in ways that have been different to other eras. The November 2020 election is truly going to be a monumental one. And can you give some sort of insight into what lawyers might have to do depending on which way the election goes?
I mean, I think the most important thing they can do is sign up right now to do election protection work. I think that this is an incredibly important election. I also think it's an election that's very much going to be under assault at the level months in advance in terms of voter registration, all the way up to people harassing voters day of. You saw last night at the primary election in Kentucky, they tried to close the doors on people waiting in line to vote, and those people protested. They found lawyers. Those lawyers found a judge who signed an injunction, and they had to reopen the doors and vote. And I think that whatever you can do, any organization you can get involved with, whether that's a campaign or the state elections board, whatever you can do to help protect free and fair elections is going to be invaluable. I think people are going to want to vote. I think they're going to want to vote by mail, in person, in any way. I think the electorate is there, and it's our job as lawyers to make sure that everyone who wants to vote gets to vote. Ideally, everyone votes, but anyone who wants to gets to vote.
Yeah, well, I think those are profound words too. And boy, I think you're absolutely right that, the assault has already begun, down to who owns those machines even,
Sure.
But once the election is over, regardless of which way it goes, I think lawyers will still have a very important role to play, particularly building on the momentum that has grown. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little worried that if the election goes to Trump, I don't know that there's going to be too much lawyers can do. But that's just me being somewhat cynical and dispirited at the prospect. I think there's an enormous amount of rebuilding that's going to be done. As I said, I think the rule of law has faced a really staggering and sustained assault during this administration. I think the three things that are going to be really important are, again, free and fair elections. I think that, with the loss of some of the pre-clearance requirements of the Voting Rights Act, free and fair elections are under really sustained assault at a lot of levels. And it's on lawyers to fight as hard as they possibly can to protect those. I think that protecting the right to protest, protecting the First Amendment is going to be invaluable. I think that's another thing that's taken a few hits. And then lastly, I think for me personally, one of the things that's really necessary is going to be holding the powerful people who have participated in wrongdoing in this administration to account. I think that we have gotten very bad at holding powerful people accountable. I think we've gotten very bad at prosecuting and protecting their interests, and saying that, even if it's not necessarily politically expedient or easy, saying that, there are rules and there are laws, and if you break those laws, you have to be held to account. And I think that that's actually going to be an important work for lawyers, assuming hopefully we get a good result in this election. But eventually, I think that's going to be an important part of this, is saying that it's not enough to say, let's all go about our business. It's not enough to just say it's politics. It's to say that the rule of law has meaning, the laws have meaning, and the people who broke them need to be held to account for that.
Yeah, I very much agree. Well, Takao, thank you so much for being you,
Absolutely.
for being part of some fundamentally important organizations that played very important roles in the last 3.5 years. And I'm so grateful that you and I have been able to do them together. And I hope that maybe in the future, there'll be other needs that will come up that we can solve. And
well, I hope we can. I hope in the future our projects are more like, it's a good world, let's make it better, not it's a bad world, let's stick our finger and let's stop the leaks right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and thank you for all that you do. Thank you for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you, and I appreciate everything that you do to get the word out, and all the work that you do as well.
Well, thank you, Takao. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Tahmina Talks is brought to you by Watson Immigration Law. Founded in 2009, Watson Immigration Law is one of Seattle's premier immigration firms, specializing in business and investment visas, but offering a wide range of immigration services. If you need assistance with your immigration needs, Watson Immigration Law is ready to help. Just call 206-292-5237 to schedule an appointment. Mention this podcast to receive a 10% discount off your initial consultation fee.